Because I know we have a lot of interesting questions. So let's get started. When Xavier joins us, we'll just usher him up on stage. Okay? So let's start out with the fact that we had a very wide range of projects up here. And I think each of our presenters touched on this in their initial presentation. But just so that we can get a comparison, I'd like you to give us a review, just 30 seconds or a minute. How did you get the initial funding to get started, so we can compare a couple of different funding models? How did you get the money to get going? Okay, push it, hold it. Push it, hold it.
I got from the Thai Research Fund as a research project in the first place.
Okay, so your money started with a research fund. Where did your money first come from?
Yeah, we get the money from the tourists, most of the volunteer and the visitor. And when we get the money, they spend money for us, and when they come and see what we do and where the money go, so we have more visitors to come. So that's our main fund from.
Great. Dr. Christine, for this school, how did that get started?
From donation for the Children's World Academy Foundation.
Okay, so one foundation providing all the money to get started.
For the first 3 years, from revenue earned, we took on a loan and from our own pockets. And now we're actually in the midst of getting a second round of investment from international organizations and from individual, high net worth individuals who are looking to buy into the company.
Great. Xavier, we're just asking how the initial money came about to get you started.
Our key was really selling the product before we paid everyone else. So through the cash flow from that, by receiving the money before we paid out everyone, that was most of our initial funding. We did put some money on credit cards during the slow months. We got a bank loan the second year and raised about $3 million in debt the third year, and then $4 million in venture capital the fifth year. So kind of grew a bit.
Okay, great. So 5 very different ways of getting money, 5 very different models. Let me ask a question at the other end. Again, these are things that came out of the presentation, but I just want to use it to kind of contrast of the 5 models. International. Give us a quick summary of your plans to grow out of your initial market area.
On international, first we developed the website and allow them to download our software and we did get 2 person with my team to respond to the question. And after they can grow up, they need more detail that of the group try to get to learn on or some project we will try to implement their power. Last year we have team from the Philippines to get to the
Okay.
Yeah, for us, we do more network with the people. And also we have the volunteer, and volunteer is quite cheap PR for us. We didn't pay at all. They come to us and they start to speak out. And we have invited many organizations from around the world to come and work with us. And we promote in the website. And when the people start to come and visit us, when we see what is our positive work, they start to go and speak more for us. And we also walk out from our country to go to speak as in different parts in Arab, in Europe, America, and many parts. This is try to show our model and our idea to others.
And let me ask a question that adds on to that, because we were visiting you this weekend. You said you were comparing the percentage of international guests to Thai guests to visit your camp. What's the percentages between international guests and Thai guests?
Unfortunately, we have only 1% of the Thai people to visit the park. Even Thai people can visit for free. We not Thai people not pay. We invite many school and university to visit, and they said your park no elephant show not interesting. So that's why we have to walk out to university and school to speak out and try to bring interesting to our park.
Okay, so 99% international customers already.
Yeah, international is hugely important to us. We actually feel it's a place where we can have an advantage over the big guys like Amazon. So that's why we work so hard to make free worldwide shipping possible. And we have a ton of customers in Asia, a ton in Australia, other areas. We also opened a UK warehouse. Our big vision is really to kind of collect English language books from the English-speaking developed countries and market those worldwide to whoever might want them.
How about other languages? Any ideas or plans?
In theory we'd like to, but as soon as we start with a new language, we're kind of starting from scratch. So it's actually, unfortunately, because we started in English, that's where we have the benefit. So we'll probably keep focusing on English, although if we did open up a website specifically for somewhere like Thailand, we would work hard to source local language books.
Great. Any international?
No, we have network of donors who could become our customers of the business. And because the business itself is a service business and it is related to education, so another means to communicate to international market is via the exchange program, which we are planning to conduct like a camp to invite the kids from the other countries to come visit the school, and we're hoping that that would be the channel to expand further for the hospitality business.
Great.
To be frank, we don't really imagine going out of the Philippines for the next year. But what we see as two opportunities for going international is one, through the international institutions that are investing in us. So working through their networks and spreading the model to other developing countries with mom and pop stores, which is practically all the developing countries in the world. And then the second way is through the way that our MFI partner now expands them, which is through joint ventures with local like-minded and similar institutions. So the way that our MFI partner expands is that they joint venture with like a rural bank in Cambodia or Indonesia, for example, and then they run the MFI business together. So that's another way how Happy Noy can get out of the Philippines, is to work with a local partner and just come up with a system where we're providing the technology, but they're providing most of the infrastructure on the ground in the new country.
What if that was franchised to another country?
A lot of groups have actually talked about that, but it's still a wide open space right now. What's the best way? There definitely is a lot of interest to bring the model out, but specifically on what type of engagement it would be is still something we're figuring out.
Xavier, how about you? Would your, back to the language issue, would it lend itself to a franchising model if somebody came to you and said, we want to do what you're doing in Chinese?
We've also had a lot of people approach us about that, and in theory it seems like a great idea, but in practice, when you're trying to build a brand and you're trying to build it globally, it can be very hard to put that to someone else that you don't have control over what kind of experience they'll give your customers, and you also may operate at cross purposes where we may want to market our books from the U.S. into France, let's say, and someone in France has a franchise there, and then we could actually be competing internally. So we feel like sense of partnership is crucial, but we do want to have control of the experience for our customers. At least that's our take on it.
Great. Quinlek, you have projects outside of Thailand now. How does that management happen? Do you copy your system from Thailand and put it in place in Cambodia? How do you grow to these international locations?
We have, when we go up there, first we train the local community there to work and manage. So we, for the first couple of years, we were going to help them to work until they can strongly enough to manage by themselves. But we use a model from Elephant in Japan. Before we were going to open that, we invited local people, NGO, to come and see our project. Try to show the idea from us for them until they accept. So mostly, not necessarily in Cambodia, India as well. When the government of them to come and see, India have so many elephants in the country. And somehow when they see elephant in Japan can do something, which is, they said, they're quite upset because they never believed this thing will work. So we decided to help in India and manage. to go and work with that. Also in India, they have so much problem when they start to do the organization, most accept money from the donation. And one day when, like a couple of years ago, we have a problem about economic around the world. So the money for foundation, for donation, people not much, they don't get so much money. We are the one who go and help them to support for the medicine, for the worker to go and work up there. And suddenly they start to realize that while a financial part can bring the money to support organization like outside the country. So when they have a problem, they come and see us, and then they decide to go and make us to be survive. So for social enterprise, I think is somehow it's more success than only more than that you wait for donation.
Great. Dr. Koke, you are practically encouraging people to copy your product. How do you see yourself growing, or are you able to, or are you creating competitors to your business? This is the common concern about open source.
In the software development business, you always have the younger, the smarter, and they can copy anytime. For example, our project has 5 programmers. We have about 10 months to develop that. But the software before that, they have 30 programmers, 5 years to develop the project. So to keep our team is energetic, so we need something to be hard all the time. So this is my philosophy. So if you provide training or you make it comfort, you cannot push the team. Long class, you do not care. If you want to copy, we have 5-year plan here. You can copy, no problem. The second is, my aim is if someone copies and make it better, they can have, every hospital can have the software to use that. So I mean that if something wrong with myself or my team, if someone copies and do it better, so the system will exist. So personally, I must care. I think we have enjoyed having a competition rather than innocent.
So you feel better if somebody is doing your job better than you?
Yes.
Wow. I wish I could feel that way. How important?
In fact, they can copy you already. Like you said, you see Amazon, you see how it works, you create. Right? So this is a software business. We cannot go there.
Okay. I mean, just one more question. You brought together 2 different backgrounds, medical doctor, and you're an IT expert as well. How did you bring these 2 together and use these to get your project started?
First, be the doctor is by accidental. Actually, I'm not a good student. To be a doctor in Canada, you have to be a good student. A great student. I love physics, I love calculus, I do not love bio chemistry. Before in France, I visited one doctor. So here I have a stomach ache. He do not look at me. He write a prescription, push it to me. It hit me a lot. So I commit to myself, I will not go to see doctor anymore. I have 2 choices, commit suicide immediately or being a doctor. So I try myself every night, work, read, to be a doctor. So I'm accidental being a doctor. For the IT, it's also accidental because when I was medical student, they have a Macintosh, the small one, the little cube computer, and the staff said, don't touch that, it's very expensive. So this is my...
So you touched it.
I sleep in the night and play with that, and I go to the computer shop, ask them, I want to be the salesperson for this computer, so this is a chance for me to learn to use the computer. So, and I found that if I be a doctor, I can treat, let's say, 10,000 patients a year. use the software is replicate because doctor business is selling the time. You cannot surgery 2 patients at the same time. No productivity. But with the IT, we can replicate, we can improve efficiency. So that is the thing that I combine both together.
Okay, great. Dr. Gritti, we have somebody sitting in the audience who wants to open their own ecotourism place. Not in the South, fortunately, they're not going to compete with you. But what advice would you give to somebody, they've got the idea, and maybe it's only an idea today, but they just feel alone, a single person, how do they move forward?
Well, I actually got that idea today from Kun Sang Duan, which I just mentioned to her that the idea of the volunteer is quite crucial nowadays. I think just the regular ecotourism business wouldn't do, but the ecotourism business that could invite people to participate in some ways. In the past, ecotourism might invite them to do some more learning, but then it's too passive. If you could do learning and also contributing in some forms, such as helping elephants in a camp, or maybe helping to teach children for 2 hours, for half a day, for a whole day, I think that's going to be more sustainable because people would feel that they're part of this community and they're going to spread the words around and invite more people to come to the fest.
But how do you get started? That's all great advice, but what do? I wake up today with the idea, what's the first thing I should do?
I think for ecotourism, you start with the ecosystem. That means that you look around in your community and start talking to them and seeking the unique points of that particular community and try to make use of that as the unique selling point of your business. So my recommendation would be to start with these people around you, the people in your ecosystem.
Okay, great. So, a very easy to answer question to all 5 of you. You don't have to pass the mic, you just say yes or no. Are you guys running a social enterprise?
I don't know. The term is after our business.
Yeah, as I tell you earlier, I don't. First of all, I don't know about this one, our project, social enterprise, until we have more and more people told me about this is social enterprise. But I learned after I made it already, and that is come by automatic.
Yeah, we didn't really know what we didn't really know what we were either when we first got started. So we'll say that we are, because I think.
Because you want a competition, so.
Yeah, exactly. Why not?
Well, I guess as Kun Sylvia mentioned in innovation number 1, e-learning, if everything is under control, that means there's something wrong. So I guess for anyone who say that you are in what kind of business, there might be something wrong. It is too controlling. So just keep doing whatever that you are doing now with a good intention for both business and for society, whatever you can call it. It's going to do good for both business and society.
When we began, we also didn't really use the term social enterprise, but eventually as it became a hotter buzzword in the past few years, people started to refer to us as social entrepreneurs, and hence a social enterprise. But if I may just say so, and I told one of the finalists this yesterday, not everyone is a social enterprise. No. You can be a pure for-profit and have a great corporate social responsibility program, and that's great, but you're still not a social enterprise. And you can be the best non-government or non-profit organization and have the best charity work, and still do the work of the best people in the world and be really great and still not be a social enterprise. My only concern, especially in the Philippines, is that if everyone is a social enterprise, you're not able to push the model forward. The way we see it, at least the few practitioners in the Philippines, we're looking at a shift from the pure for-profits suddenly looking at their core business and saying, it's not enough to just donate X% of our profit. No, we have to get into our core business and see how it's affecting communities. And you also see a lot of charity organizations saying it's not sustainable anymore, just keep on asking for money and then not being able to generate their own money. So you see these two large groups coming together in the middle, and that's the social enterprise space, where you're using business models and the best practices of all of these great corporations and businesses to achieve a social mission. And the problem, I think, with calling everyone that's doing good a social enterprise is that people won't be moving towards that middle ground or that model, which I think is more sustainable and more scalable. Everyone will just be where they are and calling each other a social enterprise, which is why even though when we began, we didn't call ourselves a social enterprise. These days, when I speak at fora, I'd like to say that it has to be more specific than just anyone who's doing a good thing in the universe.
Do you measure your social impact?
That's actually funny, because it's the last thing that you actually think of. I know that Paul is the expert in social impact analysis, but when you're starting out, you just want to make sure that there's cash, you want to make sure that things are running, you want to make sure that the people that you're supporting and helping are doing better. On our 4th year, we're taking it more seriously because we have international investors coming in, and for these big groups to invest in, they will ask, how do you measure these things? But when you begin, it's probably the last thing that you think of. The first thing that you think of is, are the people that I'm supporting, are they better off? The second one is, am I able to pay our staff properly and on time? Probably the 5th or the 6th thing is your monitoring, but as you mature as a company, it becomes one of the most primary things. So the answer there is, sort of, we're not measuring it, we're measuring it according to how much we can afford to measure it. And if we could afford more, we'd probably be measuring it better. But there is a certain level of tracking that we do.
Great. Let me ask a specific question. I'm going to ask you all a question about competition, because I'm curious about your views of competitors. But the one that is clearest in my mind, because we just visited your project, is you have your camp where you're trying to change the way people think about the treatment of elephants. But on that same road, there are a whole bunch of other resorts and travel destinations which are using elephants in all the ways that you don't like. How does that fit together it's right together, everyone is all in one place. How do you come to grips with that? How do they view you? And how do you view them?
Yeah, that is, I have to accept it's quite a big challenge for us. When I started to go and educate people about the elephant and somehow confused for the people as well when we visit the park to see between the camp just only about 1 kilometer along from us. We have about 20 camps around us, which is use elephant for the circus and elephant riding. And somehow we try to educate tourists around the world. So they asked us what we were going to do with this. There's a lot of things. For first time I have opened the park, there's a lot of conflict because then the other elephant camp think elephant park is their enemy, try to track their business. So first thing that we have to go and do our business to make healthy for everybody. We start to go and walk with them and try to be friends with them. Education first start from our local community. Most of the camp they use the people in the village to work. So when we bring the education for the people, invite the camp, invite the manager, including the owner to come visit our park, try to go and show them the idea. First when we show that, they think no, will never work because in the elephant park, no elephant show, no elephant riding. The idea of them, they still think that it will be make more business, more money. But later, when the people start to see how happy of elephant over there, the environment has changed. So the park is full the time. Other camps start to see. When first we invite them, they're not interested. Later, when they get more complaints in their business, they start to come and ask us, can we go and see your business? And like we can see right now, there's a lot of things are changing on between that. Many camps stop to use a hook. I think many of you know that in Thailand we use hook to control elephant. But around the park already, people don't use hook. They start to use bamboo stick. This is the first thing to share to see the good environment around, and we try to bring them together to work with us. We don't push, the people think us enemy, but we don't push them away. We want to bring them to be friends, and to be the friend, easy to speak with a stranger. So we want them to feel that we have we have the vet doctor in our place. So we share our best to them. We want to make more friends with people. That's something we do right now. To share and share the idea and share our doctor to them. So that we make more friends in the business.
Right. Dr. Gongkiet, how about Microsoft?
Last 2 months, Microsoft Healthcare in Singapore just tried to talk to me. They want to expand my software. I said, sorry, I'm open source. I can say to you that be the coffee can or copy for the product is easy. But to copy the vision is difficult. Because with the first step, we think about you being open source, developer license. So the way that I think, I have to think 10 years and think what I'm going to do in the next 10 years. We design the database, which is ready to be business intelligence at the first place. So if you see the screen, if you see the application, you can copy, look like that. But the thing that the difficult for copying is the vision and drive. So that's why we exist for 10 years and nobody copied us. So that is maybe the answer. The second answer is I'm a medical doctor. In medical world is different from engineering. My teacher do not pay attention the way to do surgery. If that, every time I do the appendectomy, I have to pay my professor fee. In the way of medicine, when I do something better than my professor, I publish and tell the world that I'm great. So this is the way of medicine is grown up. So I think I come from another way, not an engineer. If I be trained as an engineer, I can patent everything, protect myself.
So the medical community encourages openness.
Yeah.
Xavier, I mean, you mentioned Amazon. They were a helper or a facilitator earlier in your business. How do you view them today?
Yeah, Amazon is an interesting force in our business because we probably pay Amazon, let's say, $3-4 million a year in sales commissions for the books we sell through their website. So in that way, we're a good partner. But then we also compete directly to customers, and it's an interesting kind of co-opetition is one term I've heard used for it, where you cooperate but you also compete. And actually, the whole used book business works like that. We also sell our books through Barnes & Noble's website, through other partners of ours, and some of them sell their books through our website. So it's an interesting way where everyone competes for the customer's attention and affection. I think that's really good. We've also seen some of the guys in the book industry see that we're having some success and try to copy our social and environmental side, which I actually think is kind of flattering and an interesting way to kind of raise the bar for our whole business. And so even Amazon has their Amazon Green program now, and a lot of the smaller booksellers have much more explicitly just try to copy and say, oh, here's good things we do. And we did the first carbon neutral shopping cart on the web that I could find, and a lot of other people have taken that, and that's now a pretty standard feature on websites. So, but you'll find we're a very competitive organization, and we do like to win in the market, and I think that's one thing that makes us different from some of the other groups. I mean, lots of people, everybody wants to win in the market, but in our market, you do have to compete on price and service, quality, as well as on social mission. So we try to do that.
Right. Dr. Krisnias, your project is moving into this market for corporate training. I mean, you're basically competing all over Thailand. Then how do you face that sort of a challenge?
Well, I guess first of all we have to be clear about our positioning. And this place is not a hotel. We're not running against any professional hotels. We are a rather tourism learning center. By way of saying that, it helps to position the difference of the place, and also because our staffs are still in the process of training. We have these small kids who, like last time when I visited the place, these small kids was trying to serve me rice, and she's still dropping some rice on me. So by claiming that we are a learning center, not a hotel, customers could forgive that kind of thing that happens, and they actually find it cute to see those kids trying to perform. So our competitors are not those professional hotels or running professional services. We actually look at them as our collaborators because we know that we're not going to have people who would spend 2 weeks with us, unlike those tourists who would spend 2 weeks by the beach. So we try to invite customers of those hotels by the beach to come visiting us for a day, for 2 days, just to spend time with us. So we view them more as a partner or collaborators to send more customers to our place.
Great. I'm going to switch the question up on you, Pam, because I know you've been preparing for 4 people, but I'm interested in potentially another organization that could be a competitor for you, either Happy Noi or the microfinance institution that you work with. Is there any fear that you get too big and the government comes in and takes over?
No, there's no, we don't have those problems in the Philippines with regard to government. With regard to other institutions, we actually were very prepared for it when we began. So, my business partner came from a multinational corporation, and they had this exercise called War Games. So they would actually map out the different scenarios that their competitors would do. So we used to do that a lot in our first year. But one thing that happened was our microfinance partner grew from 20% of the market to 60% of the market. So the way that we had positioned ourselves, which was a next step to the microfinance industry, at least in the Philippines, the next largest MFI microfinance group to card, which is our main partner, is at about 18%. So they're 60, the next one's 18. So in that sense, using a microfinance base, it doesn't seem like anyone could really match up at this point to the scale that we possibly could have. But we knew that for Happy Noi to work, we needed a lot of scale, so which is why the microfinance sector was really the one that we were looking at to partner with. The other one that we need to contend with day to day are the traditional retail outlets. No? And what we found is that Happy Noi is best in the areas which really have no access, which are up in the mountains, down in the forests. No? It's really better off in areas which are very rural. For the areas which are semi-urban, we compete on a day-to-day with other wholesalers, other retailers, other groups, and it basically just keeps us on our toes. No? We don't even lock out our members to buy from us. They can buy from anywhere. So it forces us to always give them the best deal. It forces us to always be market-based. No? Because when we talk to them, we teach them about the benefit of having a market-based approach in the way that they run their stores. So which means we, who's running the ecosystem, must also have a market-based approach to how we run things.
Right. One thing that we're trying to do is not only give you a wide range of very interesting projects, but also hopefully draw some common themes. So I've asked 2 other people to ask some questions and comment on in terms of bringing this together as a conclusion. So, Sarani, you had some questions, and Steve?
First of all, thank you for a very inspiring talk. So I noticed, I have 2 questions. So one thing that I noticed runs through this post you speak is the kind of the changing of the relationship between you and the beneficiaries. So instead of just being beneficiaries, they become your business partners, whether suppliers or employees or consumers. So I think my question is, how do you then build the trust between you and the beneficiaries one another? How do you, because I imagine maybe one question is, well, some of them feel that they're being taken advantage in some way. Right? So that's my first question. The second question is, I noticed also that a lot of you, I guess all of you work with NGOs and other organizations that have similar outcome goals. So how do you feel that their involvement or partnership, how critical was that to your success?
Yeah, let me start this time, so I don't have to wait for to prepare for people ahead. With regard to the second question, the way that we approach Happy Noise as an ecosystem. So we have to contend with all the players in the ecosystem, and in that sense, other NGOs, institutions, they all have a role to play. Like for example, when we talk to other microfinance groups or other cooperatives or rural banks, we say you don't have to set up the stores. You can actually sell your products through us. Some co-ops that have are farmer co-ops, farmer cooperatives, they can sell their products to us directly. And because after we do a presentation, all of the other institutions want to set up their own stores, but we end up telling them, actually, we don't suggest that you set up your own stores. We actually suggest that you come in as producers and we can buy your products at a fair price and on time. So everyone's got a space now. Even one of the largest supermarkets in the Philippines now. This is a supermarket in the south, in Mindanao. They're based in Davao City, which is one of the larger cities in the Philippines. And they've been like a warehouse type supermarket chain for a really long time. And they wanted to partner with us. And when we began, we would see them as a threat or as an enemy. But since we've been trying to look at it from an ecosystem approach, we basically said all of the urban, because we don't have an urban model, we said we will try out an urban model with you and do it in the city in the south. So there's space for everyone in Happy Noise.
Well, to create the trust, I think the very important thing is to get everyone to share common interests. Like in this case of the school, it's not about hotel business, it's about children. So everyone, whether they are customers, partners, donors, or anyone, would need to have the common objective or common interest in supporting children. That's the key. So that's the main. But common interest in children could be somewhat complicated too. Like in this case, we have to share the same belief that helping is not just to get them to survive. Because in some areas of social work, like education, just to get by, like having average education may not be enough, and we know the situation. So everyone has to also share the interest in giving them the top quality education too, not just the average one, which not many people would share this concept, because some people think that there's still a lot of schools who would need supports in other kinds. But some people also believe that to help them to, like I said, break out of the vicious cycle, you need something extra. So these are groups of people who believe in giving them extra, giving them top quality education. So the kids at Yawawit learn English from the younger years with the native teacher. They also learn to use computer. They have a computer lab, which for some people would view it as something too extravaganza, but for some groups of people who share this belief would see it as actually the tool for these kids to exceed or to prosper.
Yeah, as far as trust, I mean, trust is a pretty crucial thing for us. I think more than anything, you build that over time by actually doing what you say, or ideally doing even better than you're claiming well. So, we do things like trying to understate the amount of time it will actually take for your book to be delivered, and then getting it there faster for you. And I think those things can be really powerful. I think most brands, valued brands, if I look at the value of our business today, it's not really in the warehouse or the inventory, the forklift. It's really the trust and the thought in a bunch of people's hearts and minds that, yeah, these guys do what they say they'll do. And so, when I wake up tomorrow, that means I'm more likely to recommend them to a friend or have my organization partner. We also, one thing we did that was really crucial is we set up an ownership pool for our nonprofit partners. So they're actually have stock options in the company, just like our employees do. There's a 5% pool. So in addition to getting the payments on a transactional basis, they have more of a long-term interest in the organization as a business. And I think that's a model that could be used more often in for-profit enterprises that do have a social mission.
For our organization, the priority of the trust, because most of the people who support us is come to the park because of their heart. They pay the money for the park to help us support. So when we start to go have the money from them, we value them as a partner. So we must accountable for to show them their money to bring to the park. We must show them is how much they pay and how much we spend for to help back for the animal and for all in the project. So when people start to see what money we have paid back to the local community or pay for the project, when they see that it's the more and more we have more network and more people helping us. So that is for us is trust is very important.
For me, it's difficult because at the first time that we proposed to Thai research fund, they said, I don't trust you. Because I'm not PhD in IT, I have no background. We defend about 10 times, and then one of our professors said, 2 billion baht will not bring the Thai research fund collapse, so it is this money, and forget about it. And after that, when the money is gone, is finished, I try to talk to investors. Nobody trusts me. Finally, I have to trust myself, learning as a doctor, to pay salary to my team. So that, I do not believe in donation.
First of all, just thank you very much, not just for being here to present, but for having created what you've all created. It's amazing to think that that wouldn't be if it weren't for you guys. So you're really the kind of the heroes of this gathering. And yesterday we had the opportunity to see the presentation of kind of our future heroes, if you will. And I'm sure there are others sitting in the audience that might not even make the stage. I'm curious to know from you all about the ecosystem, the supportive ecosystem around social enterprise or whatever you want to call it. And hear from you where there's certain key elements that were very supportive for each of you in being able to accomplish what you've accomplished. Or you can answer both or one or the other. Was there anything that was a real pain point that was missing that would have made your life and your creation, your enterprise easier to have done that you would wish for? Stumped you.
Yeah, for is this end of question or what? To work for the for social enterprise. For the first thing that is, you have to take your fear away, and you have to break it up to go work and think positive, prepare for the worst. And you know why prepare for the worst? To work in Thailand, then anything can be happen. So someday you might, if you do a business, someday you might have no tourists at all in the country. So you have to prepare for that and make the business more, give and share. You'll be happy to give more, to share to the people. So for me, I didn't learn the system of social enterprise at all. And I started to try to learn after that. After people start to talk about the financial park is social enterprise, and I said, hang on, why they call me social enterprise? And then I started to learn about system and theory of that. But I keep going doing. If you're more happy to go and work, carry on to work, believe in yourself, follow your heart, and keep help people, keep help animals, and that is the only thing can make the business happy and healthy. Thank you.
I think for us, we were the beneficiary of a lot of support from a social venture competition we entered actually shortly after we started the business. That really gave us a vote of confidence and introduced us to some more people. I think our employees, almost nobody has joined us without taking a pay cut. Although the pay is a little better now, but it's still, they had very high profile jobs, a lot of them, and were willing to join us. I do think with Steve, what your group's doing with Grey Ghost and other people on the financial side, I the big problem to solve. I mean, there's clearly a lot of money, there's a lot of foundation money, there's a lot of individual money that wants to go towards social good. And, you know, things like synthetic low interest loans can make a huge amount of difference to, you know, we had inventory to borrow against. It was just non-traditional inventory. It was a warehouse full of used books. And convincing traditional bankers that this was bankable was very difficult. It took a long time to do. And we bank with the commercial bank now. I would rather bank with the social enterprise bank. There's just not ones out there at the scale. I'd rather my interest go to someone who's going to loan to other enterprises making the world a better place instead of Bank of America, who, you know, don't even like it. There's no one from there in here. My banker isn't here, but you know, they give us a good deal. But I wish that interest was going towards something that would help make the world a better place.
I think this question is very important, especially for this kind of social enterprise model. We have limited resources and we rely much on creating this ecosystem that we support each other. So for the case of the school, there are many important people who contribute on the different ways. We have connection with the local temple who helps us to gain trust to the local community, because we know in Thailand temple is very important in connecting to the local community. So we connected with the local temple. We have the abbot, the monks who would come to the school to teach children to do meditation. Later on, we built not like a temple, sort of like a building for kids to do meditation, and the abbot just donated this Buddha image to be put in that building. Another group which is very important is the business group, because I've learned from the other session that to do business, you have to be clear about your target market. Sometimes for some business, if you only target certain groups of people, like maybe the bottom of the pyramid, you might get to a certain level of income because they have limit to that certain level of income, particularly for spending in terms of, hospitality business. So we need to be able to reach to the other group of customers, such as those in the top of the pyramid, to be able to support us. So we have networks of the business people who would recommend us to a lot of organizations or companies who would come to our place as our customers. So these are examples of the kinds of the communities which we try to build it as a supporting ecosystem to sustain the business, given the limited resources that we have.
I think it's our board, I think, really contributed to our success. Now, none of them were rich tycoons, but they were all very successful professionals who had spent a lot of years in the corporate world. We also had some people on our board who were social development experts. That includes the founder of CARP, which is our main MFI partner. So a very supportive board that knew that their return on investment would be at the same rate as probably their other investments. That was a very crucial thing for us. The staff also, everyone took a pay cut as well, and we're slowly trying to get them back to where they were a few years ago. That's very important. I think the partnership with our MFI partners is really important because they saw that what we were doing was the next evolutionary step to what they were doing. So they saw it as a space that they needed to get into also, but they knew that they couldn't do with the current level of skill that they had. So they were open to working with us now to try to develop this there. I think aside from the financing side, which Xavier talked about, I think the other thing that we need are more social entrepreneurs now, because it has to be an industry. At least in the Philippines, we noticed that the same people who were up on the stage in 2008 are the same people up on the stage in 2011, which is not a good thing. So we need more social entrepreneurs to come into the fold. And I think we need to also distinguish between the social enterprise projects and the full social enterprises now. we need more social enterprises. We have a lot of projects which are ongoing now in the Philippines, but not enough actually graduate into full-scale enterprises. And that gap from a project towards an enterprise is a gap that needs to be supported further. So whether it's an incubator or a financing, a facility for financing for very, very startup groups, no? That's a gap that needs to be filled because there are institutions, and a number of you are sitting here, who can support the social enterprises which are really mature and which have very clear rates of return. But it's the extremely startup groups, no, which I think some of the finalists are, who need that extra support, not really so much money, but that level of support where you can have enough money to fail once or twice, no, before you get the model going. I think it's that space that needs to be supported more.
For me, my ecosystem is to change software as a product to the service and knowledge business. This is change the paradigm of IT. Because if you buy a software, you have to pay for FA, you have to pay for the consulting. But this is not the way. They have to open their cell phone 24 hours. If the server of hospital is down, they have to pick up the call. And I believe that when the hospital have efficiency, so they have a server, and they not want to let it die. So this is the dependent model. But I do not know when, but it's happened after 5 years when they gain more and more income to the hospital because they have efficiency, they have reimbursement,